you'll be able to catch the replay. So let's get started. Okay. My name is Cassie. I started Midtown Mutts, a local dog walking, pet sitting, and training company in Sacramento about 8 years ago. I am a graduate of the Karen Pryor Academy for Dog Professionals, as well as the Victoria Stilwell Academy for Professional Dog Trainers. I have worked with over 1,000 animals over the years. So in addition to that, my biggest passion is helping people and their dogs understand and communicate better with each other, helping them build deep bonds and experience the world through daily adventures. Today, we are going to be talking about how to teach your dog how to relax next to a table using a mat behavior, ideas to keep your dog entertained for the duration of a whole meal while we would go out to eat, and how to pick the right kind of patio for your dog and their current skill sets. And at the end, we're going to launch or announce the launch of our hound culture community and education site and talk about how to join and become a member of that. And I am going to answer any questions anyone has at the end. So go ahead and post those in the chat as you have those. Any training related questions or anything about the Hound Culture Project, just shoot those in the chat and I'll answer those all at the end. Okay, so teaching our dogs how to relax on a patio. I like to teach this using some kind of mat behavior. And the reason why I like to use a mat is it gives the dog a place to target their bodies to, like a nice visual cue for the dog. The mat can also become a cue for the dog to actually relax and can have a real emotional response for that dog, not just the physical position of being in a down on a mat. It can actually, if anyone's ever practiced yoga, that feeling of, unrolling your yoga mat before the class even starts, you already feel like that sense of just calm and yes, I'm here. It's because you've had past relaxing experiences from other yoga classes. So you have this kind of emotional response to just being there. And we can actually create that same response in our dogs to a mat, which is really cool. So before we go into how to teach that, I want to touch base a little bit about how dogs learn. It's how all species actually learn: humans, dogs, cats, chickens, honeybees, earthworms, you name it. If it's living and breathing, it learns this way. So that is through cause and effect, also called operant conditioning, and through emotional associations called classical conditioning. Some examples of operant conditioning: dog sits equals dog gets a treat, and the result of that, the dog is much more likely to sit again in the future. Another example of this: dog trainer gives online webinar, dog trainer gets good feedback, trainer might be more likely to do webinars in the future. Another one through an example about emotional associations. Dog hears a car backfire as he goes into his backyard. The result, it scares the dog. Dog in the future is more hesitant to go into the backyard. A human example of classical conditioning, music can be really great examples of this. When you hear a certain song and it elicits this immediate emotional response, it's usually tied to some event that was going on in our lives during that time. When you first heard that song, or when that song was really popular and playing all the time, you might have this like deep gut response when you hear certain songs. That's classical conditioning. So we're going to be using positive reinforcement to teach this behavior because there is always an emotional response happening. That operant conditioning and classical conditioning, that cause and effect and emotional associations, those are always happening all the time. We can't separate them and we can't take them away. So because of that, our dogs are always forming an emotional association to things, good, bad, neutral. We want to make sure when we're teaching new behaviors and we're training our dogs that it's rooted in positive reinforcement so that our dogs love doing those behaviors. And we don't want them to form unintended associations to being punished or corrected that could increase their stress or fear, or potentially even create an aggressive response. So we are going to be using the use of a marker to teach this behavior. And a marker is some kind of signal that the dog or whatever animal you're training can perceive, like a clicker or using a particular word like yes. The marker captures an exact moment in the dog's behavior or something in the environment that signals to the dog that at that exact moment, that's when you're getting treated for. So we can kind of think of this like taking a picture on a camera. The moment your finger hits, the camera button, you just captured this exact moment in time. And that's the moment that our dog is getting treated for. So when we click, timing is really important. If you're too late or too early, you might be training the wrong thing. So just something to be aware of. But the click or the yes or whatever we decide our marker is going to be, it always equals a treat. But when we do train this way, it's important to note, we don't always carry our clickers around. We use this to train new behaviors. So only when we're teaching something brand new are we using this tool. So don't worry, you don't have to have a clicker in your pocket and treats on you everywhere you go the rest of your life if you want your dogs to listen to you. So getting started, we're gonna need a mat of some kind. I like to use an old yoga mat that I cut down in size, or a bathroom hand towel, anything that's easily portable and will fit in a bag. You're gonna want some treats that your dog likes. Cut them up into really small pieces. So if you have a large breed dog, the size of a pea would be good. A medium-sized dog, you can probably cut that in half. And if you have a small breed dog, that could be cut into fourths really easily so that you can, be using lots of treats throughout this process without, worrying about how many treats you're giving your dog or them getting sick from having too many treats or gaining weight if you're worried about that. You'll want to decide if you want to use a clicker or if you're going to use a verbal marker instead. If you are using a verbal marker, it's important that we're just being consistent with it. So how we say it, try to have it be the same each time. If we're using yes as our verbal marker, try to have it always be yes, yes, yes. It's not praise, so we can think of it like information or just clear data to the dog that they just did the thing you wanted them to do. We're also gonna wanna start this in a quiet place with minimal distractions. So, a busy park, or if there's a lot going on, in the living room, other animals in the space or kids running around, it's probably not the ideal place to teach a new behavior. Think about any time you've ever learned anything brand new. If there's a lot of distractions in the environment, it's hard to concentrate. And of course, you're gonna want your dog for this. How we're going to teach this is breaking it down into really small steps. This is called shaping. So we can think of it like a game of hot and cold. Each time the dog gets warmer, we click or we say yes and treat. So this can be used to teach any behavior, but it's really nice for teaching behaviors that have multiple steps. So If you were teaching me, let's say, to go get up from my chair that I'm sitting on now and walk over to my couch and sit on it, that's going to be broken into lots of little micro behaviors. Me standing up, turning towards the couch, taking one step towards the couch, 2 steps towards the couch, 3 steps towards the couch, etc. Turning my back away from the couch, bending my knees, sitting down, so forth. So anytime we are training a dog with this technique, we can think of, what does the behavior look like before it starts and when it ends? What does the end result look like? What are all the little teeny steps, to get there? So the first step for this, teaching the mat behavior, we want to start in a quiet room. We want to keep our mat up in our hands or up on the table until we're totally ready to start. The reason for this is dogs are really inquisitive. Most dogs are. And the moment that you put that mat down, they're going to start engaging with it in some way. They're going to sniff it. They're going to look at it. They're going to notice it in one way or another. And we can take advantage of that for that very first interaction. So the moment we put it down and our dog looks at it, we can click or say yes. And we're going to want to toss the treat away from the dog, behind it. This is going to send the dog away. And the reason why we do that is the dog knows you have treats now, and the mat is between you and the dog. And they're going to come back to you because you have treats. And in the process, they're going to come back to the mat. So the moment they then come back to the mat, you're going to mark and treat again. And you're going to do this multiple times, as the dog comes back, 1 paw on the mat, 2 paws on the mat, all 4 paws on the mat, standing, evenly over it. And each time tossing the treat away so that the dog is repeatedly coming back to the mat. Once you're getting that reliably, you can go to the next step, which is sitting on the mat. So to get the dog to sit on the mat, you've been having the dog come, you mark and treat away, dog comes, you mark and treat away. Then you're just going to wait a couple seconds once the dog gets to the mat. He's been or she's been waiting, expecting you to mark and treat immediately. Usually just waiting 2 or 3 seconds, especially if the dog already has learned sit. It's gotten treated for sitting in the past. Most dogs will default to a sit right away. Sometimes they default straight to a down. The moment they sit, mark and treat, and toss the treat away again. If for whatever reason your dog just isn't sitting, don't wait too long. Your dog's going to get, distracted, they're going to give up or frustrated. We don't want any of that in this process. We want your dog to, be happy and engaged. So, if they don't sit and it's been about 3-4 seconds, but they're still standing on the mat, you can still mark and treat that. And just do a couple more repetitions of that. And then start looking for any kind of movement towards the mat, maybe a bending of elbows or shifting weight back, anything that, what is standing to sitting and how many little teeny muscle movements can get us there. We can start to shape a sit if we need to. But usually dogs will just offer it and we don't have to go into that kind of micro shaping of behaviors. And then once I'm getting a reliable sit, I'm no longer going to toss the treat away because my next step is getting the dog to lay down on the mat. And usually it makes it just a little bit harder for the dog to lay down on the mat if they have to get up and go back, over and over again. So now my treat placement's going to be right down on the mat between the front 2 paws. A lot of dogs will just go straight into a down after the first couple treats because the food is happening on the mat. Some dogs take, a couple of repetitions to start, getting into a down position. You might have to start shaping, looking down at the mat, hunched over, any kind of bending of the elbows or the knees, and going from there. But once they are laying on the mat, you are going to want to start tossing the treat away occasionally to see if when they come back, do they just go straight back down to laying down? Or do you have to do the sit a couple more times and then the down? Ideally, we want this to look like dog comes to mat and lays down immediately. And throughout all of this process, we're not really talking to our dog. We're just letting them think and problem solve. This is a really great way to get our dog's brains working. Imagine if you had to learn new things only learning, playing a game of hot and cold. You'd be using a lot of brain power. So training this way can be really great forms of mental enrichment. On the other side of that too, though, because this is a lot of brain power happening, it's important that we're not doing really long training sessions. So teaching this whole behavior might happen over a span of maybe anywhere from 3 to 10 training sessions, maybe 1-minute training sessions, with a couple minute breaks in between. You don't have to have long breaks. Just don't let them go long periods of concentration with some kind of quick play session or a pet session or something like that, just to get let them have the downtime. So when we add our cue, we don't want to say it in the beginning at all. We want to wait until the behavior already looks like what we want it to. And the reason for that is that our dogs do not speak English. So if they don't know what we want from them and we're saying this word that doesn't mean anything to them yet, over and over and over again, we're just saying things that don't mean anything to them. If you ever watch Charlie Brown, the teacher on Charlie Brown is that wah, 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 wah. You risk becoming that to your dog. So it's really important that, if our dogs don't have behaviors down reliably, that we aren't using the cues that we want them responding to, if we want them to eventually become reliable cues that our dogs respond to. We risk them just kind of casually tuning those words out in the future because it's just that thing that person always says to me, without really understanding what it means. So once we have this mat behavior looking really nicely, dog comes to mat, lays down, click, treat away, dog starts to come back, that's when I'm going to add my cue. And you can add whatever word makes sense for you to use. So for my dog, I use settle. So dog looks at mat, is approaching it. I say settle, dog lays down, click, treat. I know she's going to turn right back around because we've been having this kind of nice repetition. I'm just going to say settle. She's going to come to the mat, lay down, click, treat. If we don't want to use a verbal cue at all, having the mat present can be the cue. So you don't actually have to say anything at all. But for this to work, you have to remove the mat when you don't expect your dog to lay on it. So if you're using a dog bed or something like that, and the dog always has access to that bed for this behavior, you are going to need to add a verbal cue because the mat or the bed is always there. So it's kind of like if you just always said, if we were teaching our dog to sit and the word sit was just constantly being used, sit, 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 sit. Your dog isn't going to sit continuously forever while that word is just being repeated over and over again, and it's going to lose its value and its meaning over time. So same with the mat. If we're going to use the mat as the cue, we have to remove it when we're not having it in use for that behavior. The next step is adding some duration and some distractions. If we're going to have our dog lay down and relax during a whole duration of a meal, that could be anything from 30 minutes to an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on, the type of outing it is. So, just teaching our dog to lay down on a mat, we're not ready to go out to eat yet. We need our dog to be able to stay there for a period of time. So, we're going to slowly start adding some distractions to where we're practicing this. So if we taught it in a quiet room in our house, can we practice it in a slightly more busy room in our house, in our backyard, in the front yard, which of course he would want to do on leash for safety purposes. Can we start adding some duration, how long they're on the mat? So, if they're on there for just a couple seconds, start building that by the second. So lays down on the mat, 1, 2, 3, click and treat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, click and treat. Start building the duration slowly. If you start building the duration and the dog just pops up, they can't do it, you're just building your duration, the time that they have to stay on there, a little too quickly. So just go back some steps and make it a little bit easier for them where they were successful, last. Other places to practice this is while you're sitting. So if you only practice this standing up, well, when you need it to go out to eat, you're sitting and the dog is usually to the side of you. And if you only train standing looking at the dog, it's going to feel really different to the dog and they're not really going to know what to do. So you're going to want to practice it in different positions of you being in different positions, of your dog maybe being in different positions, maybe to the right of you, to the left of you, etc. You can practice this at home while you're eating at your own dining room table. So just lay the mat next to you, to your right or the left, and you can just practice throughout your own meals. It's a great way to get some practice in during a time where you're already going to be doing something anyways, like eating. That's a nice way just to get some practice in. Don't worry, there is a total myth out there that you should never feed your dog while sitting at your table. It does not create begging. It only creates begging if your dog is begging and then you give them a treat. So if your dog is relaxing and you reinforce the relaxing behavior, you're going to get more relaxing behaviors. That being said, if your dog is, jumping on your lap and, pawing at you, and then you give them a treat, those are the behaviors you're going to see more of. So don't worry about, never feed them from the table. It creates begging. It really just depends on what the dog is doing during that time that creates begging. And then, when we do start to bring this to, real life practice at restaurants, start going on, downtime, off hours when it's a little bit slower, or maybe find, a restaurant that, maybe the patio isn't very busy, to really start practicing these when your dog's going to have the least amount of distractions. Going to a busy happy hour that's known for having lots of dogs, it's just probably going to be too much for them to be successful, the first time you take them to a restaurant. So here is a video of me demonstrating this with my dog Blueberry. And when we tested this out earlier on the other side, it was a little pixelated, so I apologize if it's a little slow. She does already know this behavior, but I changed the mat for teaching this. So this was her first time doing this with that mat. So even though she knows this behavior, it's taking her a little bit longer. I took advantage of that for creating this video as an example. That being said, because it's a behavior she knows, she is going to pick this up a lot faster than your dog that has never learned this behavior. So if your dog doesn't pick it up this quickly, don't be discouraged. The reason why is because she has already learned this before. But it does go through each one of these steps, so you can kind of see what that looks like. So I see I have a question from Tara, and I am just going to go ahead and answer it now. Um, so the reason why we toss the treat away from the mat is because we want the dog to kind of reset. So if we toss the treat away, we can then click and treat them coming back. So same if I was like teaching a sit. Um, I often will not treat the dog in the sit if I'm in these early stages of teaching it. I'll treat the dog away so that they get out of the sit so that they can then sit again. So same with the mat. If I toss the treat away, the dog leaves the mat. So I'm setting the dog up for the next repetition of the behavior, which is coming to the mat and laying down on it. And the clicker is definitely associated with getting the treat. So she knows that the moment she hears the click, whatever I was doing the last time I heard that click, that's what earned me the treat. I'm going to do that again. Um, and that's just been through, repetition of, um, you know, using this technique. The first couple times you use a clicker, the dog is still kind of figuring it out. What does this click thing mean? Or what does this yes mean? But pretty quickly they do start to make a really clear association of, oh, it was when I sat and then I heard that thing, I got the treat. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Okay, so some other tips for success when taking our dogs to go out to eat with us. Going out to eat can be a really long adventure, and at least in the dog's perspective. And imagine if you were just sitting on the floor for an hour or so, you're probably going to get bored. So bring something for your dog to do. You can, bring a stuffed Kong or a high value chew, something that, can entertain your dog for a period of time. The other tip I like to use is most likely you will need to treat your dog throughout the meal at some point, depending on the level that they're at. For my dogs, I'm treating them when we go out to eat maybe once every 5 to 10 minutes or so, just for reinforcing them for continuing to be really nice and polite and relaxed. It's something that I want to encourage more of. So I don't want to be stingy. I want to pay my dog for their really great behavior. So, and there's going to be times during that meal when there might be something more challenging, like a dog walking by, or the server coming by with really good smelling food, and that's going to be a much greater distraction for the dogs. So I want to make sure I'm reinforcing them when the dogs walk by. I might increase how quickly I'm treating, while the dog goes by, or when the server walks by, for them not trying to jump on them as they pass. Whatever your dog's struggle is going to be, you are going to want to use treats when you take them out. The reason why I recommend human grade food is because no one wants to use dog treats and then go back to their meal. Your fingers are going to smell like dog treats. You're going to want to wash your hands after every treating, and it's just going to make it less likely that you're going to treat them the rate that you probably should for them to be successful and learn what they need to in that setting. So you can use homemade dog treats, or you can cut up some cheese, or you can um, find some, if your dogs will work for certain types of like vegetables, they have the sweet potato strips. For some dogs, those are really high value. For other dogs, they're not interested in those. You can use like chicken breast, whatever your dog will work for, that isn't going to make you feel gross for touching it while you're out to eat. Kind of think about that as well, because that's something that most people don't really think about until they're there, and then they're touching dog treats, and then they're like, gross, now I'm back to my food. Um, okay. And then how to find the right patio for your dog. So I always recommend, if you've never been to the restaurant, it's probably a good idea to at least stop by there if you haven't eaten there before. How close are the tables to each other? Is it really busy? Is it really loud? Maybe they play really loud music or something like that. Your dog might not appreciate that. Dogs do have more sensitive hearing than we do. And if it's really close to other tables, is your dog going to be comfortable with that? Or is the other diner going to be too distracting with their food? So, make sure the setup is going to be right for your dog and the types of things that, your dog might struggle with. Start with a slower paced patio where your dog can have more space from other diners and other dogs who might be dining with their people. Try going on off hours and build your way up to more busy times of the day. And if a restaurant patio is just too much for your dog right now, try these skills at a picnic at the park and build that picnic up to busier times at the park, and then go to the slow off hours of the restaurant and go from there. So all of this leads up to this new project I have been working on, all about being able to do more things with your dogs. So for the last year and a half, I have been working on this hound culture project. And what it is a monthly online membership program that helps people and their dogs find adventures in their day. We want to help take people from having hopes and dreams for what their life with their dogs will be like to being able to just grab the leash and go with minimal effort. Whether you have a dog who joins you for happy hour, goes camping, hiking, paddle boarding, hotel traveling, to family or friends barbecue, or if you have a dog friendly office and you'd like your dog to be able to tag along to work with you, we want to help people achieve those things. So this all started with me coming from a place knowing what it's like to have a dog that I couldn't do the things I wanted to do with. So Darwin here is the beagle that you see looking away from the camera in the yellow kayak. When I got him, I was 20, and I knew very little about dogs at the time. I had dogs growing up as a kid, but I wasn't a part of their training in any way. I grew up, they were kind of country dogs. They stayed outside most of the time, and I didn't really know much about anything about dogs, to be honest. He ended up having a really strong hunting pedigree, which at the time didn't mean anything to this 20-year-old vegetarian who had no intention to hunt with this dog. But turns out the things that made him a really great hunting dog made him a really challenging dog to live with. Beagles are bred to catch the scent of something and then just relentlessly go for it. I could literally have been throwing pieces of steak at his face, and if he was on the scent of something, he would not notice them. So we struggled with all sorts of high arousal, barking at other dogs. He destroyed the baseboards in my house. He had some separation stress. He stole the turkey at his first Thanksgiving and was never invited back again. Car rides were really miserable. Every time we stopped at a stoplight, he would beagle bay. And if you've never heard of beagle bay, Google it. It's a very loud, I don't even know if you'd call it a howl. and it doesn't stop. So, it made car rides. We took him to Yosemite one year. It was a 3-hour drive. And, it was our last trip we took with him for a really long time, just because we were so overwhelmed. We didn't know what to do with him or how to take him to places, without it just being a miserable experience for everyone involved. And when we got our second beagle, Blueberry, it just started to become really easy to leave him at home. And, that was really hard for me. I had all these hopes and dreams of all the things I was going to do with my dogs, and I didn't really know where to begin or, where to start or how to successfully do those things. And, I was left thinking like, well, maybe someday I'll have a dog I can do those things with. And, that led me down the path of, working with animals and doing what I do today. Is, I had to learn a lot just to cohabitate with this dog, for us to successfully live together and stay sane. And through that process, it led me to becoming a professional dog trainer. And once I started actually knowing what I was doing and, how to give him the skill sets to succeed in those environments, he's able to do all sorts of things with us. We kayak with them, we go out to eat all the time with them, hotel travel, things that I never thought I'd be able to do with these dogs, are pretty easy for us just to, without much planning, a spontaneous trip, get up and go. And over the years of training, I just heard that repeat over and over again with my clients of, well, wouldn't that be nice? Oh, yeah, this dog? Yeah, right. And it really got me thinking of, I would like to create a space where people have, the support to be able to do those things with their dog and live that lifestyle that they want with their dog. So how is it going to work? This is going to be the beta version of this program. So those who sign up for it are really going to help shape it become, what they want it to become. Each month, we're going to have different themes and topics, that are compiled with training videos and guides, how-tos, some resources in various forms, some kind of live online Q&A group training thing where people can ask their questions from myself or any guest trainers that we bring on. If they're stuck on anything, we're going to create some form of video submission. So if people want to submit a video of them training, if they're stuck somewhere, they can post that and, get that analyzed and figure out, how to get unstuck from that. Here's another photo of Blueberry out to eat. The goal for this membership is to help everyone achieve Ponderlust, which is a strong desire to explore with a dog by your side. When you join Hound Culture, you will be getting the Building Blocks Foundation course with video training and workbooks where you're going to learn the skills to help your dog focus and relax in a variety of situations. Each month, we're going to have video how-tos, workbooks, checklists for whatever that month's topic is. Upcoming topics, in November, we're going to do surviving the holidays. December, we're going to do all about mental enrichment. As the weather gets crummy, we spend less time outside. So how to survive our dogs getting walked less. We're not getting the same level of exercise or activities they might, usually get. And then from there, we're going to have, certain months will be about specific behaviors that keep people from being able to do things they want with their dogs, like loose leash walking or traveling in the car, an issue that my dog really struggled with his howling. Other months will be more adventure based, so out to eat with your dog, paddle boarding with your dog, kayaking, camping, etc. And in addition to all that, we'll be doing live online group training each week, so that everyone gets the support they need, the questions they have answered, so that they see progress in the things that they're working on. This is going to be $25 a month or $250 annually. This is the founding members price for this beta launch. Everyone who signs up this week will be locked into this rate for the life of their membership. We will be launching this officially in January, and the price will be going up. So if this is something you're interested in, you want to take advantage of this founding members price. And in addition to that, we are going to be, anyone who signs up in the next 24 hours, so Monday by 4 p.m., we'll get a phone or video training consult with me where we can go over anything you're struggling with. If you don't know where to begin, we can start there. If you have some kind of real pressing struggle with your dog, any training questions you have, we can go over all of that during that 1 hour training session. So if you are going to sign up, definitely take advantage of this bonus and do it in the next 24 hours. So now, if anyone has any questions, I'm going to put in the chat the link to sign up if this is something that you see you wanting to do with your dogs. If you've ever had that feeling of, all these things I'd love to do with my dog, but I don't know where to start. This program is for you. But any questions about anything, whether that be on the patio behavior, teaching the mat work, the use of a clicker or a verbal marker, or anything about the membership, and now's the time to ask. I'm really excited. We have a lot of trainers who are really excited to partner with us in this program. We'll bring in people that specialize in different things. So I have a good friend who her whole training program is paddle boarding. So she's gonna, help us teach that one. And, another trainer who really focuses on, dog reactivity, dogs who bark at other dogs when they see other dogs. So she's going to help us teach that topic. So it'll be fun, and we'll have lots of resources, and it will be a good time seeing everybody, build the community of just kind of living this lifestyle of, what to do with your dog and all the fun adventures, and we can all inspire each other to what people are doing with their dogs. Thanks, Tara. Well, if there are no other questions, you can contact me at, I'm going to put it in the chat. wolf@houndculture.com. If you have any questions, you can also contact me through the Midtown Mutts email, or any of those channels as well. This membership to enroll will close on Thursday at midnight. So that is the deadline to sign up. So if you have any questions, shoot me an email. Okay, I have a question from Heather. Can you explain the difference between click and treat on mat and when you would like to reset the behavior, so treating off the mat? So I click and treat off the mat early stages of teaching this behavior. When I want to make sure that the dog is getting it, like that it's not just laying down, but laying down on the mat. But once that's happening really reliably, I'm no longer resetting off the mat. I want to start building the duration of how long that dog can be on the mat. The next steps to think about too with this is we can start looking for not just laying down on the mat, but more subtle signs of relaxation. So, do their hips start to sway to the side? Do they, you know, um, are they able to look away from you, the person with the treats? If they're staring you down and wagging their tail intently, that's not relaxed. So, can they disengage from you at all? If they're wagging their tail quickly, can it slow down a little bit? Can it even stop? You can mark and treat all those little things that are suggesting a dog who is starting to relax more. Um, in the beginning, the dog might not be truly in this like mental state of relaxing. I kind of like to think of it as a fake it till you make it situation. If we train the physical appearance of being relaxed, with time the emotional response comes with it. Just like when we're working actively on calming ourselves down, whether that's through like mindfulness or breathing exercises or whatever. In the beginning, it's very forced and not natural, and it doesn't have the relaxing effect that it's supposed to. But with time and repetition, those feelings of relaxation do come. And the other time I'm clicking and treating to the mat is when I'm really trying to, in the beginning, get that down behavior. Because if we toss a treat away and the dog chases to go get a treat and then comes back, it can be hard for a lot of dogs to go straight to a down, especially if they haven't done it yet and there's no reinforcement history there for that. Kind of getting them more relaxed. If we're tossing treats away, that's kind of counterproductive for getting in a more relaxed position. I hope that answers your question. Great. Okay. Any other questions? If not, please feel free to email me any questions you have about this webinar. I am happy to answer them, whether that be about the mat work that we talked about, going out to eat with your dog. If anything I said was confusing at all, or you'd like some more elaboration on it, please reach out. I'm happy to elaborate. And if you have any questions about the Hound Culture membership, also, please send me those emails. And yeah, thanks for joining. And I look forward to seeing and hearing from you guys around. Bye.